Everyone has the right to say no to things, but how easy it is for you as an individual to exercise that right is greatly influenced by privilege. I was in the middle of scripting out this video where I talk about all the things I said no to this past month as an influencer, when I ended up doing an entire side rant on the topic of privilege and how my privilege allows me to say no to certain opportunities as a creator. And I realized I just had so much to say on the topic that it deserved its own video. So here we are. It's 10 p.m. I've got my matcha here. I'm settled in for a really good heart-to-heart. I've been talking a lot about the creator economy lately, and as my videos have gained more and more views, they have inevitably started reaching people who are not necessarily the target audience. I make videos for content creators who are looking to navigate a career online without trying to focus on going viral or needing hundreds of thousands of followers. And instead, recently I've been reaching people who absolutely despise influencers, who think we are the absolute scum of the earth, horrible, unethical people, which is probably my fault. Looking at the packaging of my past few videos, I shouldn't be surprised by the type of audience it attracted. Now, don't get me wrong, I do definitely understand where a lot of the hate comes from, and I do try to address it and explore it in my content in the hopes of helping aspiring creators know what not to do if they want to be successful or respected in this space. But still, I'm honestly a little disappointed by how quick people are to vilify creators, saying, oh, I would never do this. I could never accept that. I would never sell out. It's just this rush of people doing whatever they can to put themselves above others and being extremely dismissive of what could maybe motivate somebody to make the decisions that they're making. I understand that the word influencer is super charged and it brings out this very visceral reaction from people. But I want to explore the topic of turning down opportunities with a bit more nuance. Because if we're being honest, the people who can say no to things the easiest, who can say no to things without some level of personal consequence, usually have a certain amount of privilege that makes it easier to do so. And actually, this video isn't just a response to haters, people on the outside of the creator economy. I think it's really important, if not more important, for those within our industry to remember too. Because it's really easy to judge the types of deals that other creators are doing, saying that, I would never do all of that work for so little. I would never work with such and such brand. I would never give these certain rights away. All the while forgetting that we are privileged enough to be able to turn those deals down. And this video might feel like a response counter to my last video where I'm encouraging creators to say no to things, but I personally see it as an extension of it, adding more nuance and depth to the conversation. So let's quickly clarify what I mean when I say privilege. Here I'm talking about an advantage that somebody has, perhaps due to their identity, their social position, their class, circumstances, etc. And often these privileges go unnoticed and they act as blinders when we look at and try to understand somebody else's situation. This causes us to determine whether or not people are making the right choice based on our unique lived experience, all the while not realizing that we might have certain advantages or circumstances that make it easier for us to make said decision than it would for someone else. Looking at myself, for example, some of the privileges that come into play when I make decisions in general, but especially in my journey as a creator, are that I am able-bodied, I am light-skinned, I live in Canada where there's objectively less competition. I've been doing this for a really long time now, so I have a lot of education under my belt, connections. I have already gained access to a lot of things. I have pretty solid family support, both in my husband and in our family units surrounding us. And that's just off the top of my head. There's probably definitely more. Now we're gonna switch gears just slightly into what is one of the biggest misunderstandings or misassumptions, that's a word, right? Around content creators. It's that all creators all have a lot of privilege. And specifically, there is this assumption that all creators, or at least the majority of creators, are privileged due to their wealth. Either because like the top percentile does definitely have tons and tons of money, and there's like confirmation bias when you see those creators living their extravagant lifestyles, or maybe it's just that a lot of people are flexing and pretending that they're really wealthy. And I really do think this assumption is driving a lot of ill feelings towards creators. It's this feeling of like, don't push me a product when I'm poor and you are rich. Why can't you just create content for fun because you love it? Why do you have to cheapen your content with ads and brand deals? But most creators that I know, including those who do it full time, are not wealthy. A lot are doing well, don't get me wrong, but very much in a sense living paycheck to paycheck. They have to mind their money just as much, if not more, than they did when they had a day job and their income was much more steady and predictable. And I took to the internet to see if there were any stats out there to confirm this, and these numbers kind of shocked me. The Influencer Marketing Hub released a creator earnings benchmark report for 2023, and nearly 50% of creators, I think it was like 48%, make less than $15,000. Just 10% of influencers earn 100K or more per year. 7% are in the 100 to 500 range, 3% in the 500 plus range, which, don't get me wrong, is good money. I just broke 6 figures for the first time last year before all of my deductions and everything. And it's kind of mind-blowing to think that that puts me in the top 7%. But all of these numbers here are revenue before taxes, before expenses. So like take 30 to 40% off, take off expenses, and depending where you live, if you are in a metropolitan city like me, there's still no hope for you to buy a home one day. Again, please do not mistake me for saying that this is not good money. It's just that the stats, the percentage of people making that good money is so small. So the chances are, like statistically, the creators that you're scrolling through on your feed who are doing these brand deals are not these super financially privileged people. Also, in doing research, I came across this graph, and I would say arguably beauty creators get the most hate online. But according to this, they are making the least. Of course, there's gonna be like the big beauty name creators, the outliers who are in that top 3%. But if you just go ahead and mute those and you don't like their content, like chances are, again, everybody else you are going to see after that are just people using their spare time around their day job to create content in the hopes of like having it pay off one day. But again, because we are talking about privilege, yes, even being able to post content online, especially at like a semi-consistent rate, does require a certain level of privilege. You have internet connection, a phone, and enough spare time to work on your content. Even if it's just the few hours between getting home from your day job and going to bed. Okay, now reining it back in again. With all of that in mind and knowing that money really does drive a lot of our decisions in society, who will have the easiest time turning down an opportunity where the brand won't budge on budget? The brand doesn't fully align with you and or your audience. The brand has a really strict script or has unsavory contract terms, and so on and so forth. It's pretty safe to assume that when there is money on the table, the person who can walk away the easiest will be someone who is already financially privileged, who won't take a big hit by saying no, or who maybe has a family safety net, or who has enough of another type of privilege that they're confident enough that another better deal is just around the corner. Again, I don't know how many times I have to say this. I am explaining or trying to understand people versus excusing. Not having money isn't a great excuse for taking on, bad partnerships to promote products that are harmful. But if we looked at like the amount of privilege somebody has as a scale, you can understand why somebody at the bottom of that scale would more readily take an opportunity that didn't align with like their integrity and their morals. And I'm not saying somebody who has very little privilege is always going to sell out or take on deals that are exploitative or bad. And I'm definitely not saying that people with privilege are always going to be the most moral, altruistic. There's many examples of people on either side of the spectrum making both types of decisions. We're just talking about the amount of barriers somebody might have to mentally overcome in order to like stand by their morals. Okay, so we've talked about money to death. Now let's talk about some of the other ways that privilege can affect somebody's ability or likeliness to say no. So next we have the privilege that comes from not being part of a marginalized group. We're talking male privilege, white privilege, neurotypical or able-bodied privilege. If you're part of one of these groups, it is more likely that you are going to get more opportunities. You fit a lot of the default target demographics that brands are looking to market to, and therefore your chances of working with a brand is higher. Also, if you have this type of privilege, you're less likely to feel like this is one of your few chances at actually landing a brand deal, or like a brand took a chance on you. Those of us with marginalized identities don't see as much representation out there. We don't see as many brands putting money into creators that look like us, which naturally just makes us feel like our opportunities are limited. Like if we don't say yes, we will be seen as ungrateful, another one won't come down the pipeline, or sometimes worse, that in saying no, we are potentially ruining the chances for everyone else who shares our identity. I was once discussing like the idea of representation with a woman who is an actress. She's a Black woman. And she said she was really hyper aware of like the responsibility she held to take on jobs where it really did seem like the production or casting or whatever was like taking a chance by hiring a Black person. And even if her own experience wasn't the best, her only goal in doing so was to walk through the door and hold the door a little bit wider for the next person to come behind her. Like if she could be fantastic to work with and make it a great experience for everybody, she's hoping that it increases the chance that they hire a Black person again in the future. And I think if you are a white creator, that's probably not something you've ever had to think about. You probably don't feel the weight of an entire group of people, of an entire identity on your shoulders. You don't feel like your yes is going to pave the way for others who look like you. If you're feeling burnt out, you can pass on something without feeling guilty. You have the privilege of being a little bit more selective with what you take on. Next is the privilege of knowledge, usually gained through experience. And this is really gained just by time spent in the game. As someone who's been doing this for 8 years, I have been burned many times, and in each burning, I have taken lessons away that allow me to discern whether or not an opportunity is right for me in the future. I know when to walk away from a negotiation when a brand just like won't meet my rates, because I know that if I accept it at that rate, I'm going to feel a little bit of bitterness and frustration as I work on the content, and it's probably not going to be my best. I also know that some events just aren't worth my time because I've said yes to many and gone and realized that that was the case. And I take that knowledge with me as I move forward. So this just naturally leaves newer creators, beginner creators, smaller creators at a bit of a disadvantage because you just don't know what you don't know. You either have to make friends in this space, do your due diligence with research, or simply live through it yourself. But I think it's a level of privilege that is really important to consider because I think this is the one that a lot of creators forget that they have. As they grow, they've learned all of these best practices, they really understand the industry. They forget, we forget, I forget, I'm guilty too, what it was like at the beginning of our journey. We forget that the first brand deal we ever accepted was for $75 for 2 massive rounds of Instagram content because we didn't know better. We didn't have anybody to talk to. Yeah, I think for those of us who have all of these like lived experiences, it is important to share it. It is important to educate people, to try to help them speed along through the journey and like gain that privilege quicker. But I don't think we should be shaming people and be condescending when we were once at that point too. And if you are a creator that somehow missed that stage, like those growing pains, those beginning pains, again, you probably had some other type of privilege that allowed you to skip it. Maybe again, you had money, so you weren't even tempted to take those lowball offers that weren't worth your time. Maybe you had education in another field. Or maybe you had an advantage because you found yourself in a creative community or a business-minded community where the people around you had a lot of experience and were imparting that knowledge on you that way. Another advantage that I think comes with time in the game is your building out of industry connections as well as like access. If you're somebody with an abundance of connections and you have a lot of rapport and relationships in this space, you're not as likely to think that turning down an opportunity or like a brand invite will prevent you from accessing these opportunities in the future. You're not worried about being crossed off a list because of a no. But again, if you're on the newer side, or maybe you've even been in this a while, but you haven't yet managed to make some of those like deeper industry connections, you're probably tempted to say yes to everything, show up to everything in order to begin forming those relationships. Or again, out of fear that if you say no, you're gonna miss out in the future. I've actually talked about this with a friend before, and we're both convinced that in declining event invites, we have actually missed out on being invited to events in the future. Whether it was an intentional blacklist or the next time they sent out invites, they just simply pulled from the list of previous attendees, we'll never know. It's probably that. It's probably not actually that malicious. But if you have the privilege of having a little bit more notoriety or of having some of those deeper connections with PR and brand contacts, they're not going to forget to put you on the list. In fact, they might even see your no as like a testament to how in demand you are. Whereas I don't think they're thinking the same of a smaller creator who turned down an invite. So all that being said, being able to say no to things without fear of consequence is definitely a privilege. But I still think it's an important one for us to exercise, both for our own benefit and for the industry as a whole. Let's talk about that more over here. Thanks for watching, and until next time.